While those in wrestling are larger than life on TV, they have private lives like all of us, though sometimes wrestlers aren't unaware of where to draw the line when it comes to sharing information. I've been here times those in wrestling reveal too much personal info. Cena was also on Total Divas thanks to his relationship with Nikki Bella, and during the show, Nikki talked about how Natalya peed herself in the ring during a match with Naomi in 2014. Cena proceeded to say, "I pooped myself once. I had to throw my pants away. It was in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I had food poisoning and I still went out to wrestle. Everybody knew. I was embarrassed." Cena went into details about it previously in a magazine interview, but there he had mentioned Winnipeg, so there's a chance he was either confused about the location or he relieved himself in two different places. It was in Winnipeg, and I was wrestling Scott Steiner with Bull Buchanan as my lackey. I got food poisoning and thought I wouldn't be able to wrestle, but went out there anyway. I took a DDT, rolled out, and the timekeeper was there. I looked him in the eye and said, "Where do I puke?" And he said, "Under the ring." So I went under the ring and puked, and everybody knew it. But as I was puking, I crapped my pants. Luckily, it was at the end of the match, but nothing has ever topped that since. Being the voice of modern WWE, Michael Cole as a commentator has had to deal with the likes of Vince McMahon in his ear. Taz recalled that Michael Cole was losing his cool during rehearsals for SmackDown. While doing so, he was trashing McMahon. Unfortunately for him, he didn't know that his headset was a hot mic. Vince and the crew heard everything. For the rest of the day, Cole was running away from and avoiding McMahon, but eventually got caught and chewed out. On the Howard Stern show, Candice Michelle revealed she had been involved in a softcore film early on in her career, which she would end up regretting. During the same interview, she revealed how she got her implants and how her boyfriend picked her up out of an LA club. In regards to her sexual adventures with Dolph Ziggler, Amy Schumer revealed to Howard Stern that it wasn't bad, but it just wasn't for me. The sex was too athletic. The first time I was like, "Oh, this is cool, nobody's ever ragdolled me. He's like spinning me like a globetrotter." I was like, "Oh my god." I felt so petite. It wasn't that crazy, but it felt like we were wrestling. There's a girl out there that will be so obsessed with him and psyched at all those events, but I wasn't the girl. Ziggler didn't mind Schumer's comments as he saw this as complimentary and admitted his mother asked him about the interview and what a few things meant, which made it more than a little awkward. Virgil once talked about Andre the Giant saying he was intimate with 4 women at the same time and that he stacked them up like a sandwich before he went to town with his fingers. As disturbing as that may sound, Hulk Hogan also shared a story about Andre. "Well, we stayed at a big hotel plaza downtown, Shinjuku in Tokyo. Whenever we had something going on down in this hotel, he used to call me up when it was weird and perverted or crazy. He was a little wild. So there were these 2 cute little waitresses that worked out of the restaurant and they were just little cheese-sized little teeny 4'6". Every time I was down there, they were always sitting on his lap. So I'm in my hotel room and Andre calls, 'Boss, come down here. You've got to see this.' When I walk in the room and the bathroom door is open, he's on the toilet doing number 2s and getting oral from one of these little waitresses at the same time." When Paul Bearer was The Undertaker's manager, the two would travel together while still staying in their roles. Unfortunately for Bearer, one time he had to go to the bathroom desperately, but they needed to buy something first, and Undertaker said Paul had to be the one to pump the gas. According to Bearer, he could not take it and the sight and the sound of the hose was too much for him, and he ended up wetting himself, because they were not going to drop their gimmick even at a random gas station. The Undertaker found it hilarious and laughed a lot, and when the news got around, when they arrived at the event they were going to, only an hour later, Vince McMahon himself was waiting for them there with a pack of adult diapers to give to Bearer. On Busted Open Radio, Jake Roberts touched on The Undertaker approaching him to ask him about strip joints. Unfortunately for the Phenom, Roberts' taste in parties were too much even for one of his standing. He comes to me and says, "Hey, I hear you know where all the good strip joints are at." And I'm like, "In the world? Yes, I know them all." And he's like, "Well, I'll travel with you." And I said, "Oh boy, why don't you go back to playing basketball because you're not going to be able to hang with me." And I said, "I'll kill you." And a few weeks later, I believe he was in pretty bad shape. Something about alcohol poisoning. Yeah, it was a chemical world and I was cheating. cheating, man. He didn't know it. I wasn't gonna tell him. He rolled with me for quite a while. In an interview, Kevin Nash talked about how Vince McMahon pulled him and Taker into his office to ask that they no longer go to strip clubs while on the road, as WWE was concerned about their public image. Nash went to one a few days later, and when he got there, he saw Taker with the two sitting together and talking. Yet another story about Taker from Ric Flair shows his wild side. As Flair recalled, he and I and Harvey Grant and Kurt Hennig started out again. That damn Jack Daniels. Next thing, I woke up in the morning with some woman next to me. There were two women actually, and I couldn't find my Rolex. I woke her up and said, "Where's my Rolex?" She said, "You threw it in a plate of spaghetti at Sabatino's and said you had 11 of them. No big deal." While in WCW, Raven and Perry Saturn were thrown out of a hotel due to shenanigans that included hiring two strippers that they were intimate with while naked. Then, while knew they made a slip and slide in the hallway of the hotel, both were drugged up and they tore the pipes from the sink in one of the rooms as water emptied into the hall. Then, using the fire extinguisher like a jetpack and a device meant for a sex strap to Saturn's head, Raven created what was a makeshift bowling alley. They flooded the entire floor of the hotel, with him eventually being thrown out. Because he wanted some gator shoes, Roddy Piper once stopped an alligator while traveling through Florida. Piper shot the gator twice with a pistol, then it slid in the water and was still. He had hit it on the head with rocks and it did not move, which led him to believe it was dead. He and Kevin Sullivan stripped down to their tights and waded into the water when the gator got up and dove back just as Piper was near it. Both men then hightailed it for the car. Piper would also have a match against Victor the Wrestling Bear. Unfortunately, another wrestler put honey on Piper's pants ahead of the match. The bear grabbed the arm of Piper and brought him down. When Piper found his stomach, Victor found the honey. So he licked up all the honey, and when he found there was no more, he pulled down Piper's pants, then put his snout where no snout should ever go.
I'm out, man.
Piper was terrified. He was crying and punching his snout while the others were looking on. They darted the bear and he crawled out from under that bear naked. He then tripped and fell headfirst on the concrete, knocking himself out, giving onlookers an interesting view. Missy Hyatt is one of the most famous valets in wrestling, and after she divorced Eddie Gilbert, she had several relationships with wrestlers and revealed she wanted to have a baby with Bret Hart, saying their genetics could have seen them have the ultimate wrestling child when they were together. Hyatt revealed Vince McMahon found this story funny, and that was the source of all his jokes about being a genetic jackhammer. Rusev, aka Miro, was one of the most dominant US champions in WWE, even making an entrance on the tank for WrestleMania. Rusev was called out by a fan on social media saying that his biggest accomplishment was riding that tank. However, Rusev said he had not only ridden in the tank, but he had been intimate with Lana in it. During the speaking out movement, Jim Cornette and his wife were accused of asking wrestlers for favors in the bedroom in exchange for opportunities in Ohio Valley Wrestling. Speaking about Cornette on his podcast, Kenny Bowen revealed Cornette's wife had been with the Big Show before she met Cornette. He also saw Big Show naked and smoking a cigarette, and that was not something he wanted to remember. During her wrestling career, Sunny managed many. Since leaving WWE, she's been in legal troubles, and in her autobiography revealed she had been in a 9-month relationship with Shawn Michaels, describing in detail their intimate moments. The two of them would apparently sneak off during shows to private areas of the arena. She also talked about other former partners backstage being involved with Chris Candido, Chris Masters, the British Bulldog, and Dolph Ziggler. During a time when Drake Maverick was unable to consummate his marriage thanks to interferences from R-Truth surrounding the 24/7 title, other wrestlers' intimate lives were drawn into the conversation. Following an episode of Raw with Maverick and Truth, Vince Russo said if it was Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins in these scenes instead, and if Becky had been intimate with Seth, things would have taken off for WWE. Becky decided to respond to Russo on Twitter, silencing him, saying she had indeed been intimate with Seth the night before. The then wife of Corey Graves accused the WWE commentator of cheating on her with Carmella. Despite the negative and rocky start to that relationship, the two are together and on the Bear With Us podcast spoke about whether it was normal to pee in front of your significant other. It turned out Graves said that Anne might be into it, as Carmella mentioned golden showers. Former partner of Shawn Michaels, Marty Janelli, found himself in controversy when he made a Facebook post about how he had held out from having intercourse with his apparent daughter. Janelli claimed Bianca was not his daughter, something he had found out after a DNA test. And while they had held out from being intimate, there was no reason to do so anymore. Janelli has commented on it since, saying it was a messed up post. He went on to say that he was mad that after so much work in the wrestling business, he was now going to be remembered as a man who wanted to be intimate with his daughter. He said that his site was hacked or came from a fake account, and he was not the one who said that, saying he had lost his phone 6 weeks prior to that post. Teddy Long is one of the most beloved WWE GMs and revealed Mick Foley slept around a lot when he was Cactus Jack in WCW. He had his fun on the indies, and during that time he was single, though Foley apparently once asked Ron Simmons to hold his hand while he was in the middle of the act. Long did not go into detail, but Foley apparently held Simmons' hand, saying he needed his support while he was being intimate with a woman, which is a mental picture no one needed. With the Wrestling Observer, Jon Moxley talked about being quarantined with Renee Young, saying the two were getting it on all over the house. Moxley also shared that they were expecting live on Dynamite. Moxley, who has always been private, appears to have turned a new leaf. DJ Hyde and Moxley used to work together in CZW. According to Hyde, Moxley was completely crazy. Apparently got intimate with a girl at a hotel room in a bear costume. Moxley has never denied or confirmed this, but he was on WWE TV at one point wearing a bear outfit. Nature Boy Ric Flair has claimed that he has slept with 10,000 women, with many like Steven Tyler saying this cannot be true. However, according to Flair, if you do the math, I started when I was in 7th grade. Let me say that hypothetically I slept with 5 people. You'd go to your friend next door. If I had said 250, you'd go no. If I said 5,000, you'd say oh maybe. I'm not far off on that number. It doesn't mean that everybody was Marilyn Monroe by any means, but I'm not far off. I was really good at 3 things: wrestling, drinking, and talking, saying goodnight. Flair has also claimed he's been intimate with Halle Berry, a claim Berry has denied. Flair also shared a story that during a show in Baltimore, he got on the microphone and said, "The 4 Horsemen are renting a suite on top of the Baltimore Marriott. Any girl between the ages of 18 and 28 is invited. No husbands, no boyfriends." Flair claimed that hundreds of women showed up, with this being repeated in different shows. Kurt Angle unfortunately happens to be one of the many wrestlers who have admitted to cheating on their partners when they were on the road. The woman with whom he was intimate turned out to be a stalker. This woman was allegedly Ric Flair's stalker at one time. She followed Kurt from venue to venue and telephoned him in his home. She even left threatening messages for his family and children, saying she was pregnant with his baby. Thankfully for Angle, he got police involved and she was arrested, with him saying, "This girl has been stalking and harassing me for over a year, terrorizing my whole family. I'm completely relieved she's in jail now. I want this to be over with." During his case against Gawker for releasing his adult video, Hulk Hogan ended up testifying about the length of his member. Hogan had previously suggested his little Hulkster was 10 inches, however during the trial he testified it was not. Hogan went far to clarify this, saying Terry Bollea, his real name, was not that big, but Hulk Hogan was. To Howard Stern, Stephanie McMahon revealed she had been to adult clubs and that when it came to her underwear, she preferred thongs. She also shared that Triple H was well groomed, and she was more than open to letting Hunter see her be intimate with another woman. In '06, John Cena was on the Howard Stern show promoting his first ever film, The Marine. There, Cena said he had an orgy with 6 women that were his fans and explained he didn't enjoy the back door in bed. He specifically focused on one larger woman whom he was intimate with, saying there was an instance not too long ago where I hit the 280-pound mark. She took me home. It was a challenge set out to me by the entire wrestling roster. It was walk in the door, do the deed, and walk out. Cena went on to describe he was regularly intimate with fans and that he was not going to say no as he was enjoying the experiences. Cena also described a time when he was intimate with 2 pole dancers in Louisville where he was able to experience every position he'd ever wanted.